other thing that I should remind your audience, I'm sure you know this, but Hezbollah entered the fight on the 8th of October after it was clear that the Israeli regime was going to assault Gaza and they had genocidal intentions. They said that there are no innocents. We recall what they were saying about what they're going to do to the Gazans, and they did it. And so Hezbollah entered the battle in the north of Palestine in order to draw away Israeli forces from Gaza to help Gaza, to help save Gaza. And if Hezbollah had not made those sacrifices, they would have overrun Gaza. So the regime had to put, I don't know exactly how much, roughly half of its troops in the north to deal with Hezbollah, and thus the genocidal invasion of Gaza was hampered. So if it wasn't for Hezbollah, Gaza would have been overrun. And now Hezbollah and its supporters across Lebanon, for almost 3 years now, they've been paying a price. And they knew that this would happen. But they did it because they felt responsible for the people of Palestine. So it's for that reason that we all have a responsibility to, when we see that Hezbollah and its supporters have made such sacrifices, we have to be more vocal in our support of the Palestinian people. We have to be on the streets. We have to be protesting, not breaking the law in any of these Western countries, but giving an excuse to the Zionists to destroy the lives of people, but to create greater awareness. And in our region, people have even greater responsibility because the countries in the region they're all complicit. And so we all have to be more active, and we have a responsibility to those children in Gaza who are being slaughtered every day. I read a report, and I think Chaz Freeman first told me this a couple of days ago, and I looked it up, and it was true. Apparently, it's quite possible that up to almost 700,000 people in Gaza have died. And they make this assessment based upon the amount of aid that goes into Gaza now. The population is significantly lower than what it was before this Holocaust. So we have a responsibility to save the rest of these women and children and men who are besieged and who are being starved and who are being abused and who are living under horrific conditions. We have a responsibility, and we cannot escape. Our silence is complicity.
No doubt. And the report you're talking about, it was reported by Lancet as well in terms of the figure of 700,000. So I totally agree with you.
I think that Lancet report was a report that came out a while back, but another report came out more recently. Apparently, that's what. When I looked it up, I saw the Lancet report, but I think that Ambassador Chaz Freeman was alluding to something newer, but the report that I saw was the one that you were saying.
No doubt.
Now, you refer to.
Yeah, no doubt. I totally agree with you, and Gaza's always on our minds. Now, the nuclear discussions, there were claims that there were some nuclear discussions during this meeting. One of the claims that was coming out was that you've already debunked the IAEA inspection, but the other element of it is that there was some form of understanding that the Iranians had agreed to dilute the nuclear enriched uranium, which Iran's always agreed to that in terms of the 60%. I thought that was like a negotiation tool. They were always willing to, at some point, do that as long as the right requirements were met. But the other aspect that has been claimed is that Iran agreed to 0.7%. What's your thoughts on this?
No. The Iranians have not agreed to anything. That's all nonsense. The Americans are playing games for their own propaganda purposes, because the agreement, everyone in the United States was saying that this was a tremendous defeat. So now they have to add all this nonsense and put out this disinformation in order to make up for their defeat at the negotiating table. No, Iran hasn't agreed to anything. Iran has said for years now that under the right circumstances, it is willing to dilute the enriched uranium. That's the enriched uranium that's at 60% right now. Why? Because from the very beginning, the Iranians enriched uranium at 60% to put pressure on the West. When we signed the nuclear deal in 2015, of course, Obama violated the deal, then Trump tore up the deal. After Trump tore up the deal, and then the Europeans also refrained from carrying out their obligations, the Iranians waited for 2 years before normalizing their nuclear program. And then when they did, and after a delay, they decided to enrich uranium to 60%. Why? For leverage, in order to force the other side to come back to the negotiating table, because we had an agreement with them and they were refraining from carrying out their obligations. So now Iran has this enriched uranium at 60%. So Iran is saying that it is willing to dilute it, but you have to give something in return, and that is ending the sanctions regime against Iran, all the sanctions. So, but that has not even begun. Iran is not negotiating its enriched uranium at 60%. Now is not the time. Whenever and if and when they do in the coming weeks or so, it will only be negotiated in the context of the removal of the entire maximum pressure sanctions regime. But Iran will not give up enriching uranium, and it will not give up its peaceful nuclear.
That's awesome. Now, another thing was there was a statement yesterday, Professor, from the Qataris and the Pakistanis, a joint statement about the negotiations. One paragraph said the following: the mediating countries will do... Oh, sorry, that's the wrong sentence. Where's it gone? It's about Lebanon, which is essentially what they were saying was, and I've just lost that bit. Here it is. In addition, the parties agreed to the establishment of a de-confliction cell between the parties and the Republic of Lebanon, mediated by the mediating countries, with the aim of ensuring the cessation of military activities in Lebanon, accordance with the Memorandum of Understanding. So we understand that this is forcing the Israelis to move out. We understand that the mediating parties the main parties are Iran and the US. The mediating parties are Qatar and Pakistan. But it also says in this, and the Republic of Lebanon. So is that the Lebanese government? And if that's the Lebanese government, yes, how will they be working in relation to the resistance in Lebanon?
Well, the Lebanese government, even though it is obedient to the United States, and even though they have never tried to protect their sovereignty, and they've done more to harm the resistance than anyone else. But the Iranians believe that Lebanese sovereignty has to be recognized in this text. So the Iranians have said that Lebanon has to be a part of this. It cannot be that the Iranians and the Americans sit down and push to end this situation, but ignore the Lebanese government. So in order to enhance the status of the state of Lebanon, the sovereignty of Lebanon, it has to be a part of this process. Even though the current president and prime minister were installed by the Americans and are very hostile to the resistance and to Iran, but it is still necessary because it is the flag of Lebanon.
That's fair enough, yeah, because I think that when it comes to Joseph Aoun, he was very negative about Iran, but his last statement seemed like he'd maybe become a bit more logical and understanding that this is a very important process. Now, there is another question I've got for you. It might be a bit of a tough one, but there is a lot of conversations happening in Iran and on social media about this claim that there's been some kind of regime change in Iran in reality, and if the reformists have taken over, and essentially what we're seeing now is the result of that. And so many people who are a bit more I don't like using the word hardliner because I think it's a way of demonizing people. Because whenever I ask people, what do you mean by hardliner? I think they mean conservative, but they can never answer it. But conservatives. So what's your kind of thoughts on that the negotiators are not going with the view of the conservatives or the people who believe in a theocracy?
Well, it's not really a theocracy. It's an Islamic republic. Yeah. But I don't believe, first of all, I'm not in any political camp, and that's why I'm attacked by all the different camps. I get attacked by the so-called hardliners or the conservatives or the principalists, and I get attacked by the so-called reformists and the liberals and whatever.
Welcome to the
So
club.
it doesn't matter to me. I don't care, and I have no public position. What I can say, though, is that, first of all, it just shows, contrary to what the West says, that we have open debate in Iran. And there's a big debate going on about the negotiations, whether they're being carried out in the right way or the wrong way, whether Iran is being too lenient or whether it's that, and that's fine. And we've seen that the leader has his position, members of the Supreme National Security Council have differing positions, and at the end of the day, together they make a decision and move forward. And I think that's a healthy thing. I believe that the Islamic Republic of Iran continues to have the same Ayatollah, the martyr, Ayatollah Seyed Ali Khamenei. I believe that we won this war thanks to him and thanks to the martyrs who stood up for the people of Iran and the people across West Asia and across the world. They were fighting on behalf of the entire global majority, and that's what they were saying all along, as well as for their own sovereignty and independence. I think that what the path that we're following right now is more or less the path that we've been following in previous years. At the negotiating table, obviously, you're not necessarily going to win 10-0. That's not how it works. But I think in the war, that was the case too. They hit us and we hit back. And ultimately, the United States and the Israeli regime lost the war. But does that mean that we won 10-0? No, they destroyed our parts of our, they destroyed our schools, they murdered our kids, they just bombed hospitals, they bombed factories, they bombed. So it wasn't 10-0, but we defeated them in the war. And in the siege warfare, our economy suffered. But the United States foolishly imposed this catastrophic energy crisis on the world. And but they lost. Did we defeat them 10-0? No, but the United States still lost. At the negotiating table, we're not going to be dictating all of our terms. If that was the case, Palestine would have been freed by tomorrow morning. But we do have the upper hand, and we will use our leverage at the negotiating table, and our determination and our resistance and our resilience to succeed at the negotiating table and to get important concessions and not to give up key concessions to the enemy. So, some people wish that we could do better. I too would wish that, I wish that the resistance in Palestine would be able to defeat the Israeli regime, and to liberate the country. But it's not that easy. So no, I don't agree. I do believe that there are legitimate criticisms of the political process, the negotiating process in Iran. But I do believe that some of the criticisms are also unfair. And so that's why both sides are unhappy with me, because I'm not going to give a blank, and I'm not important. I'm just an individual sitting at home speaking to you using my cell phone. So it's not as if anyone should be deeply offended by my position. But I do believe that we are more or less, I think that we are following a course that is positive. Could it be better? Of course. Could it be worse? Definitely. But I think more or less that, it's good that we have these arguments in Iran, and it's good that we have these raging debates taking place. It's healthy for the country, as long as it does not take the focus away from the real enemy, and that is Zionism, ethno-supremacism, and the ethnic cleansing that accompanies it, and the genocide.
No doubt. And I don't see any of these debates in Saudi Arabia, which is a key ally of the United States of America. But in terms of talking about ethno-supremacist state, I know you go on Piers Morgan and he refuses to disavow the ethno-supremacist state of Israel. But one of the things he says, and many other people say, I alluded to it earlier in the conversation, was this notion. They say the Ayatollah was a hardliner and his son is even bigger hardliner. And I just don't understand that terminology. I think it's to manufacture consent that these people are aggressive, because let's be clear on this. And I want your thoughts on this and for you to elaborate if you could. So the current leader of Iran, Mujtaba Khamenei, he had his father killed. He had his, I believe his granddaughter killed. He had his son killed in that first attack. Now, imagine that was Donald Trump. He would have killed millions upon millions of people if something like that had happened. And yet you're seeing a scenario where, according to the previous letter, even though he didn't agree with some aspects of the negotiation, he said, look, I'll cede to what your position is, President Pezeshkian, and let's go ahead with this deal. So what's your thoughts on this terminology that's intentionally used in order to demonize?
Yeah, I think it's complete nonsense. And I think it just shows that the decision-making process in Iran is based on debate, discussion, rationality. And I may not agree with parts of the conclusions, or someone may think that we should be more assertive. Some may believe that we should be more flexible. But I think that in general, the process is well formulated. I think the policies are well formulated. I think the process is producing good results. As I said, I don't agree with everything as an individual, but I think that is a part of the reality of life in Iran, where people have their own worldviews, and I'm glad that is possible. I apologize immensely, but I have another commitment, and they're calling right now on my cell phone. And if it's okay, we could leave the discussion for another time.
I really appreciate you taking the time out, Professor. Thank you so much for giving us time. I think you answered a lot of questions that people were concerned about, especially from our side of the aisle. So thank you so much for coming on.
Not at all. It's always a great pleasure, and I congratulate you on your excellent work.